basically drama, right? Think of it as a play. So there's a victim, there's a hero that wants to save the victim or a rescuer, and then there's a persecutor.
Welcome to Hello Grow,
the number one growth podcast.
I'm Court Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza.
And today we have Taylor Harris on the podcast. And we're stoked to have you, Taylor.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So thanks for joining us. Taylor Harris runs a multi-million-dollar food truck software company and has a tile company and is a business coach, an intellectual, and you have a degree from Utah State and a professional MBA from Utah State. And as I told Carlos, are probably the smartest person I know. For sure the smartest we've had on the podcast, but maybe the smartest person that I know in person. So really,
I don't know how to respond.
No pressure.
So I'm just ignore that as you're judging the rest of what I say.
So stoked to have you on, Taylor. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy life. Also have a wife, 4 kids now.
Yep, 4 kids.
And done. 4
and done.
4 is done.
For now.
3
no,
are done.
No, for now.
Sneaking in.
We already had the one that snuck in. So.
Now done for sure. Well, Taylor, we're going to go through, this is going to be a little different format than other podcasts we've done. We're going to talk about your entrepreneurial journey, and then we're going to get really deep into this concept called the hero's journey, which I know you're very passionate about, and you probably use as you're coaching your CEOs and entrepreneurs that you coach. So let's just start a little bit with you. We'll want to talk about how you built your business. What are some of those chewing on glass, staring into the abyss moments that you experienced? And then we'll go through the hero's journey and how you coach other entrepreneurs. What are some of those points where people should persevere and they quit? Or what are some of those calls to the hero's journey that people ignore? And what are the ramifications of listening to that call or not listening to that call? And how do you adapt yourself to the world after you've gone through some of those adventures?
Oh, that's exciting. I'm excited to talk about that, yeah.
Okay, so how did the Food Truck League come about? What were you doing before? Where did the idea come from? And what was your first customer?
Yeah, so I was working, I'll do the short version of a little bit of my story. So I was working at a pension fund. So it was at the time a little over $8 billion, and I was an economic analyst for the fund. I ended up in that job, I'd say, because I'm a very curious person. So I just read behavioral economics books because I like those. And I was networking, trying to find my first job out of college, and they offered me an internship as I was trying to network to ask them to help me find something, and just ended up loving it. Worked with really great people, got to meet a lot of interesting people, kind of looking at that world, that big picture. While I was there, I was getting my professional MBA, and a friend of mine living in San Francisco had this idea for business services for food trucks. A lot of food trucks are truly living the American dream. You're talking about people that take everything they have, put it on the line, passionate creators to make something to make people happy, right? And they're out there working really hard, but these are small businesses. They don't have a marketing team. They don't have a front desk and all these different aspects. So that was the launch of our business. I don't want to go too far past there, but I'll kind of go farther down Food Truck League because I kind of hit a wall there. I was at Food Truck League for several years, and I had this vision where I was just like, if I can reach a point where I can work 5 hours a week and then do whatever I want the rest of the time and make a good enough income for my family, that's it. I just want to be free. And I accomplished that in kind of towards the end of 2019. A really great general manager who's with us today, super smart, hardworking. And I was mountain biking and running up in the mountains and just living what I thought was my best life, right? I was free. And I remember I rounded a corner one day coming around bend in the mountain. I looked out at the valley. It was beautiful. The sun was shining. It was a Wednesday, like at 1 o'clock. No one's up there. And I thought, this is it. And I thought, you're 30, I think I was 34 or something at the time. And I thought, this is it for how long? Like, this is it? This is the rest of my life? I'm going to just run these trails up here? And it really started a journey for me where I said, free to what? Where up to that point, I had said, I want to be free. And I started asking, free to what?
So we're going to go into that and answer that question. I want to know some of the down and dirty, like rolling your sleeves up of early days of the Truck Food League? Like, you got to this point, but was it just like started and then 5 years later I'm running in the mountains, having an existential crisis and having this privilege that 0.0001% of all people that have ever got to live have ever had because they've never been in that situation?
Yeah, I skipped over a lot there. That's a good question.
So give us maybe one of your biggest hurdles and how you overcame it.
Yeah. So that first year was really hard. I think I really wanted to prove something. I think that was some of my energy at the beginning stage. I wanted to prove that I could build something and do it. And so I kind of made a deal with my wife. I started my business when we got pregnant with our first kid. So she was really sick.
What year was that?
2015.
Okay.
So she was really sick, and I was like, I am going to succeed. Like, there was just a determination there. So long hours. I said yes, just pushed, made so many stupid mistakes. I think the biggest things that I had to learn was how to be smart with my time and say no. That first year was just yeses. I just wanted to get that close. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can probably relate to this. I just want to get that close. If I get a little more revenue, maybe things will be good. And learning to focus on the right things instead of just focusing on a yes. So that first year was hard. I worked 80, 90 hours. I quit. My friends thought I was crazy. I quit a good job where literally I got to go in when I wanted, leave when I wanted, pursue what I wanted. It was a creativity research job. And then I was working 90 hours a week, scheduling food trucks and like trying to figure that out. And it was hard. I had lots of times where I was like, why am I doing this? This is like, I gave myself a pay cut to work harder. And that first year, paying myself nothing, the company made profit of $30,000 without any income to me for a year. And I was like, I remember thinking like, people would tell me, oh, you're a smart guy. And I found myself with my professional MBA, I just finished, quitting an investment job with people I loved. I was in a parking lot at midnight. Trucks had left, and I was cleaning up garbage. And there was a trash bag that had a hole in it that I was carrying, and it dripped juice down my leg. And some mystery juice, I don't know what it was. And I remember thinking to myself, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing, you're not even a food truck, you're a food truck's garbage man. Like, you're not even trying to build something, you're just carrying their trash for them, right? And it was like a low point for me where I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work at that moment. And I had to just kind of talk myself through it and say, hey, you're going to give this your best, grind for a little bit longer. And if it doesn't work, you're learning a lot from this experience. So that first year was hard. Fortunately for me, I had a competitor that was really not very good. So that catapulted me and shortened the time frame to build, because they would go out and sell people and tell them these great stories, not follow through, and then the trucks actually would tell these future clients of ours, there's this other guy, he's a pro, he really cares. And so all of a sudden, year two, I just started getting all these referrals really from the community. And I don't think it was like, I hope I was a nice guy, but most of it I think is I was competent. I demonstrated that I was competent and fair and wanted everyone to win together. So I'd say that's how we broke even, is really from a community. It was nothing I did. It was just trying to do the right thing with everyone I worked with.
Taylor, I'd love to understand a little bit more about the product that you guys had and how you were adding value to customers, because that's such an interesting industry and that you guys saw an opportunity. What was the value that you guys were adding? What was the service that you're providing to those food trucks?
Yeah, when we started, we thought it was an event. We thought we were doing an event. We didn't really understand what our business was, right? We were just like, hey, let's do an event and get a bunch of people there. Huge success. We had tons of people there. Over time, we figured out that a lot of trucks need that kind of support. So maybe some help with marketing, some help negotiating with cities, with businesses. The transaction costs of working with a food truck are really high. We work with 150 last year. There's probably 250 in the valley. So if you want to book a food truck and work with a food truck, which one? Like, how do you find them? Who's good? What's the right price? All the prices are different. So with my kind of economics background, I thought I want to build a model that's fair to the trucks. It's not just me choosing like, I like this truck, so we're going with them. So what we did is we tried to organize the information and lower the transaction costs. That's the nerdy way of answering your question. The way that we did that is we have a ranking that we track trucks in the valley that we work with. We look for popularity, reliability, and relationship to be non-partial. And then we use that data to help when a client wants something. Some clients might want someone that's really popular and has a name that draws people in. Others might want that craftsman that isn't a good marketer, but they make the best tacos you've ever had. Our database allows our team to really specialize in that knowledge. And then also by having done 10,000 events a year for years, we know what questions to ask, how to structure the event in a way. So oftentimes a lot of our clients would come to us and say, we've tried doing this ourselves and it was a disaster. Trucks would come to us and say, we like working with you because the events run much smoother. So a mixture of having that knowledge and that data, and then also the knowledge about how to structure things in a way that everyone can have a win-win. Kind of sitting, I like to think of it kind of like an eBay with white gloves, kind of a dated reference.
You created a marketplace.
Yeah, a marketplace.
So your customer is the county or the city or the carnival or the sales company that's hosting an event, not necessarily the trucks, or they're both. If you're Uber, you have to satisfy both the driver and the passenger.
Yeah, it varies. This is always hard for me to explain because who pays us? Sometimes it's the truck, sometimes it's a caterer. The cities don't pay us. It's a partnership that we work together. So we try to form partnerships and create value. And so depending on which situation, the payment comes from trucks, from catering companies, from different places. So it's unique.
Got it. So as you're walking, so I have two what was your why questions. One, what was your why to start? Like, I started an inspection business where we looked at semi-trucks. Not sexy at all. You started a food truck services and software company. Also gonna say that's not a sexy business to leave what we were doing to go and do it. So what was your why for leaving? And then as you're taking the trash out, that mystery juice is running down your leg, getting into your Nikes. Like, what do you tell yourself in that moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the first why, I remember thinking about that a lot. It was hard for me to start because I knew I was going in for discomfort, right? And what's the definition of aging? One time I heard the best way to measure how old someone is when they aren't willing to sacrifice comfort anymore. The less willing you are to sacrifice your comfort, that means you're getting older because you're less willing to try new things, expose yourself. So I think at that stage I was scared to sacrifice comfort. My dad and my brothers actually really helped me with this because I was like, why? I don't know. I don't know if I'll be successful.
Do you see that going the opposite way, by the way? And then we'll get into this. If somebody reverse engineers that and says, I'm going to seek discomfort, that it will anti-age them?
I think so, yeah. Wisdom is like being open-minded, right? So exposure to new things, new people, not feeling like you have the answer. That's how you stay young.
Cool. Sorry. So your dad and your brother?
So my dad and my brother really helped me with the confidence through that because I don't know if anyone, okay, maybe there's people out there just much better at this than me, but I don't know how someone could do it without support. People that believe in you and help you think about it from a bigger picture. And they really helped me step out of the moments, not just to launch, but throughout those first months of, I mean, we live in America. It's fantastic. How far are you going to fall? If you're a smart, hardworking person, take your shot. Go try. I think that comfort with taking a risk is so much easier here than other places that maybe don't have as many advantages as we have. So I think starting with that gratitude and understanding of the situation we're in gave me the comfort to start. And the why was, what am I capable of? And at the end of my life, one of my favorite questions is, going forward, what advice would my future self give me? So I picture myself at 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, and looking back, and that person's talking to me in this moment. I can stay with the safe job and make good money, or I can go on an adventure, right? Which one is better? Okay, maybe I'll be wrong and have less money in the bank account, but I want the adventure. So that was my why. And I also believe growth is, the only way you get growth is going on your adventures. You got to take your journeys or else you don't grow. And then remind me your second question.
When that mystery juice is running down your leg,
Right.
what got you to wake up and go back at it the next day?
I think it was, honestly, I was proud, if that sounds weird, because I like the fact that I was not seeking comfort in that moment. So it's a good story to tell because it really illustrates the lows that you can hit in those moments. But as I reflected on it that night, I was like, I mean, maybe it sounds egotistical, but I was like, good for you. Like, you're not looking for the easy way here. And maybe this works out, maybe it doesn't, but you are doing your very best. A little aside, every day when I drop my kids off to school, I ask them what are the rules. And the rules they tell me every morning is work hard, have fun, and be kinder than necessary. And so to me, I was living those rules. I was trying to be kinder than necessary to everyone I conducted business with. I was working hard, and I was having fun. Not when the juice was down my shoe, but lots of other times in that experience were fun.
So let's fast forward. You build this wildly successful company. You have partners running it, and you're on your trail run through the mountains. And then you came to that free to what? Wanted to be free. And that's so interesting that you word it that way, because it's such a simple way to word what I've been feeling for such a long time, is this pursuit of freedom. And it's essentially like, if you didn't have to work, what would you do? But you just simplified it. Free to what? And I don't know if people ever actually like get that without being in that situation. You could run that mental experiment, but I ran it so many times. But actually being in it was a different feeling that created a lot of angst and a lot of lack of meaning and some difficulty.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. I love the quote, simplicity on the far side of complexity. It's one of my all-time favorites. And this concept is one of those, right? It's a simple concept that you can go down a deep rabbit hole on. And what I love about it is, I mean, you mentioned Hero's Journey at the beginning. A lot of...
And we can go into that if you want, if we are going to go into it.
Not yet. More,
Okay.
I think it's related.
Yeah.
Where what we're really doing with simplicity on the far side of complexity is like, how do you find purpose? Because when we say free to what we're really saying is what's purpose. And the irony is, Viktor Frankl, who is another pillar I use in my coaching, he talks about the paths to meaning. And he went to a concentration camp where everything was stripped away. His ability to control, to ask the question, free to what? Like to do all those things that we take for meaning and purpose. And he said something really interesting that he said, it's not you that's asking the question, it's you that's being asked. And so in that context, when you have someone that's searching for their purpose, which is what free to what is saying, sometimes that's escaping from the level that the game you're playing, and you reach a new place and you ask, what am I free to do now? As you see the rules shift around you, you realize, oh, it was all just a game. Nothing's necessarily real about that except for in our minds. And I think people can get there through lots of different ways. And why I reference the hero's journey is I think that's what the process is. We're all in our game, in the circumstances of our life, trying to navigate what's the purpose of what I'm doing? What is life asking of me right now? And how we respond to circumstance is how we find purpose.
It's such a beautiful way to word it, and I have never thought about it in that context, that we're being the ones asked.
I love it, yeah.
Not
Viktor
asking the
Frankl's.
question.
If there's any book I would recommend confidently to anyone, he's the guy.
Yeah, man's search for meaning. Okay, so talk us through, at the end, I'm going to ask you what your free to what is, but we'll save that to the end. Can you give a synopsis of what the framework is of the hero's journey, how it kind of, like, it's a very commonly used phrase, not probably a household name, but people have heard it. So why did that become popular? And then what are the stages? And then we'll go into it.
Yeah. So I'll start maybe with like how deep it is inside of our culture and our world. So I've done a study, and it's fascinating. You can go, the Mesopotamian god, Marduk and Tiamat, who adversaries, if I'm not confusing them, Marduk had to slay the dragon of chaos, Tiamat. He stood in a place of vision, and he had to go out and conquer chaos. So inside the hero's journey is a message of you're in a place of order and perfect comfort, let's say. Things are, you know where you're at. One of the phrases I like to call with my clients is your wonderful, beautiful rut, right? It's cozy, you know where the walls are, you know where everything's at.
Bilbo Baggins living in his little
Right.
hole in a hill.
Exactly. And we're in that place of comfort, of order, and something's wrong in the world. And you have to go out and fix that. There's a call to adventure, that you have something that you're being asked to do by life, that you know something needs to be addressed. And there's usually in the stories a herald or someone that invites you to go on that journey. It can either be something happening or someone coming. So with Bilbo, we have a certain wizard that comes along and invites. And what's beautiful about this is it's not the wizard's story. The wizard can be very powerful, The herald can be very powerful, but it's not his story. As a small aside, I think that's where a lot of people's unhappiness come from, is when we try to be the hero of someone else's story. So the hero's journey is really powerful to help you say, where am I at and what needs to be addressed in the world? And then the reason I bring up Marduk and Tiamat is a really ancient religion that no one's personally attached to today, right? I'm not going to run out and someone's going to be like, you offended me about your statements about Marduk. But it's true about every other religion out there. All religions follow this narrative arc. Buddhism, Christianity, having a place of order, voluntarily entering into chaos, voluntarily entering into suffering to bring order to chaos. And note that it's not to have order, it's the process of bringing order to chaos. It's a looping process, and that's where purpose comes from. So the hero's journey is how to find purpose, and it breaks it down from thousands of years of stories, not just from religions, but also from Lord of the Rings and Odysseus, Harry Potter, entering the basement to fight the snake. Every story, in fact, I love Disney with my kids a lot more with this model. It makes it a lot more fun to watch these shows now because I can see the narrative arc. And what the point Joseph Campbell highlighted is there's these stages. And depending which model, you can go deep into it because there's micro stages. But the core pieces are you start from order, there's a call to enter chaos. When you cross that threshold, there's a hesitancy. The common question is, am I enough? When we just talked my entrepreneur story, am I enough to do this? Am I going to be successful? Then you cross the threshold. Oftentimes you think your objective is one thing. Going back with Lord of the Rings, he thought it was to take the ring to the elves. It wasn't, right? But at that time, that was all he could muster up the courage for. He felt he wasn't enough for the larger journey. Along the way, you face trials, obstacles, you find mentors and allies. Then you reach your dragon, or you meet the goddess, right? That's where you have your moment where you overcome or you address what needs to be addressed. Then you have to take what you've learned and you have to return home. But like Odysseus, when you return home, you're not the same person anymore. It's like Jacob's ladder. It's a circular looping process, but you never reach the same point twice. But it's the same story over and over again. And so Odysseus has to go home and you have to integrate the new with the old and you have to reach that new plane. And then you find your next journey.
So talk us through, does everyone that's born have this moment where they're called? And if that is the case, what percent of the humanity listens to and acts on that herald's call?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I definitely believe everyone does. What percentage acts on it? I think there might be different layers here, right? Because I think there's not just one call that we're invited to go on. I think there's probably multiple calls that we're getting. So in an isolation, a Lord of the Rings story, since we're talking about that one, you hear this story without going too crazy into the stuff I don't understand with quantum physics and different, the double slit experiment, and reality occurs once it's observed, and before that it's a wave of potential. Like that stuff just trips me out. It's fun to talk about, but without going down that rabbit hole, you have different invitations in your life. And I think what makes a life is the choices you make on which journey is your journey. I don't think there's a deterministic, this is your journey, that you have to go slay this dragon. There's plenty of dragons out there, and you're choosing which one you feel like you're meant to. That's the question life's asking you, what's your purpose? And you make choices of the size of the dragon you want to slay, how much you're willing to sacrifice to get there. The great leaders of civilization that we read about and look at oftentimes are people that chose to slay a dragon that connects with us at some level, and that's why we admire those people.
So each individual has all of these different influences. So you have your parents, your friends, your religion, your community, all saying, here's these adventures that you should embark on. Here's these adventures that you should not embark on. And they all create this reality, or this group of people that you need permission from to embark on this journey. Proverbial permission, this self-imposed permission to embark on this journey. What's the question that you ask, or the group of questions or the advice that you give to people that are trying to figure out the journey that they want to walk versus walking the journey from one of these other influences?
Yeah, and like a way of saying that is, which of those people is your actual herald, right?
Yes.
I think that's one of the dangers is don't let someone be your herald that thinks they're the hero in your journey. If you're familiar with like the drama triangle, there's a victim, a hero, and a persecutor. And we all, whenever there's any conflict, in my coaching, when I work with somebody and there's a conflict and they're struggling with another person, it's amazing how often it is solved just by showing the drama triangle and asking a few questions on it. And then that person can start seeing how we're all playing these parts in this play. And when someone's trying to be the hero,
Can you go through that real fast? I've never heard of the drama triangle and would love to just have a quick.
Yeah, the welcome to conversation with
Free
me. When
coaching
you ask one
session with
question
Taylor
and I like
Harris.
spiral into 6 more. So the drama triangle, basically drama, right? Think of it as a play. So there's a victim, there's a hero that wants to save the victim or a rescuer, and then there's a persecutor. We all like to think of ourselves as the hero. I've noticed through talking with everyone I've talked about, they're like, oh yeah, I've slipped into the hero role. But what's interesting is we think we're a hero, and that has like a nice connotation, but a hero requires a victim. A hero does something for somebody that they can't do for themselves. That they can do for themselves. So if someone can do something for themselves and I want to feel good about myself and I'm looking for identity and value and feeling like I'm worth something, then I go looking for victims to save. And then we create these dependency loops where I'm important because I helped you. And so I'm a good person. Where the opposite side of that is the empowerment triangle, where instead of trying to save you, I'm your coach. I never do something for you that you can do for yourself, but I believe in you, I support you, and I help you do those things. Now, if you can't do something for yourself, then maybe I do help in that moment, but that's not being a hero. I'm not saving the day. I'm helping you save the day. You're the hero of your story. And I think so many people today are lacking in that purpose and confidence that the substitute for that is maybe I'm worth something if I save somebody. And so I think that's one of the main messages from the drama triangle that I found a lot of value in for me personally.
Love that. Okay, so back to the question. How does somebody go about deciding which voice to listen to? Who's the herald?
Yeah, so I'll channel Joseph Campbell with the Hero's Journey here. He said over and over again, follow your bliss. And now what does that mean, right? I think there's something in us that knows the answer to that question. And if I can do a little tangent into one of my current deep dives to answer this question, it'll sound a little bit out of the way, so hopefully it loops back in. Ian McGilchrist, he looks at the neurology of our brains. In the 80s, there was a lot of research about left brain does this, right brain does that. Problem is none of it replicated. Like it was all, didn't replicate. And so he looked at it and he said, but why? We have a corpus callosum in our brain that separates the two halves. Every other part of the brain is trying to maximize the number of neural connections we can, but why split the brain in half? And so his research is rocking the academic world right now because it's very interesting, his answer. And the best way I can illustrate why that's important is think of an ant colony. If you have ants, they find a resource or food, and their job is to exploit the resource. So they release pheromones. They follow the trail, and you can watch this happen. Every once in a while, you'll see an ant just kind of peel off, right? And if you think of humanity as a giant brain, we do the same thing. Most of us are just kind of following that trail, exploiting that resource. And every once in a while, there's this ant or human that just is like, I'm going that way. Now, that ant's not like, I've built an analysis and I have a plan and here's my measurables. He's just like, I'm going over there, just wandering. That's chaos. The other one's order. That right brain is our chaos. It allows chaos, connection. It allows us to ask questions. It's the why. The left brain is order. It will efficiently drive you right off the edge of a cliff. So our Ian McGilchrist research on that says our brain was split because when we're navigating, we have to be able to identify small things, food, things we have to look at, and analyze and compartmentalize, build a plan, be efficient. But then we have to watch out for predators. We have to connect with other human beings. We have to do these things that help us thrive.
Find innovative ways to do it faster,
right,
better, different.
Right. And so in our society today, think of that ant colony. Look at how rich we are. There's resources lying everywhere. So what does that do? His book is called The Master and His Emissary. And his thesis is our modern society has let the left brain take over our lives. And we're all spending our whole lives just extracting resources. But we've lost the why. The right brain is the one that makes us feel connected. In fact, Dr. Jill Bolt, when she has a TED Talk, and when she had a stroke, her left brain shut down, and she talked about how she felt connected to everyone. The right brain doesn't see a distinction between me and you. The left brain compartmentalizes, it separates. And so, tying that back to the herald and the journey, I think when you're in left brain mode, you're letting the emissary drive what journey you're supposed to take. The only way you can actually find the answer to that question is tapping into your right brain. And so it depends on your level of development. How in touch with that are you? Have you shut that down? Maybe you need to work on that. And then that will help you find your journey. There's not going to be, I think, for most people, a concrete answer that's like, oh, here's the analysis and who you should listen to. Why I think Joseph Campbell said, and now I'm bringing it back home, hopefully in a coherent way, what I think Joseph Campbell meant by follow your bliss is there's no analysis that's going to happen here. There's something in you that knows what your journey is. There's something in you that knows you have something to do, and you need to tap into that. And it's not something that your left brain is going to be able to analyze. It's something that your right brain is able to connect to.
Taylor, do you think that, or do you know, are people born with one side of the brain stronger than the other, bigger than the other? Or is it everyone is born with the same amount of left and right, and based on your choices, one side develops more than the other?
Yeah, and this research is really new, so I don't think there's an answer to that question, but I can give my opinion.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion.
That I love Dr. Helen Fisher, when on the nature versus nurture question, kind of what you're asking, she painted this metaphor that I really like of a house. The nature is kind of like the architecture. It's the bones of the house. The nurture is the paint colors you choose and the decorations. And as anyone knows that can walk into a house after someone else buys it, two houses can feel completely different. And so I think left brain, right brain, I think there's people that are more inclined to one way or the other. Is that nurture of the culture of their family, exposure? That's, in my mind, a tough question to answer. But I do think that Dr. Ian Gilchrist is right, that as a society, culturally, we are so left brain dominant right now that I think that's the number one reason that most people aren't happy, aren't finding their purpose. They're navigating a jungle very efficiently. We're very good at not tripping on the roots on the ground and watching out for the snake there, but we don't know where we're going. That's probably the main focus of my coaching is, ironically, the number one thing that stops high performers from succeeding is not that they don't know how to do an Excel spreadsheet. It's they don't know why they're doing it. And when you aren't a craftsman in what you do, you fizzle out. The what got you here won't get you there, or chips on shoulders put chips on in pockets, right? At a certain point, that stops being sufficient motivation, and you ask yourself, free to what? Because, okay, I'm comfortable now. That was what drove me. And I think that's the main thing that high performers are looking for, is opening that right brain up and saying, what is it that I'm meant to do? And exploring that question.
I have a follow-up question, and I hope it makes sense. Is it better for the world if everyone lived more on the right brain? Or it's good for the world that there's a balance of people that live on the left and people that live more on the right?
Yeah, I think it's about who sets different jobs to do.
Yes.
So I would say, as a society, we'd be a better place if people had integration of their halves rather than trying to strengthen. It's kind of like going to the gym and just working out one arm for 5 years. Like, that arm is going to be powerful. You're going to be able to lift things with that. But I wouldn't want just my right arm or just my left arm. I would want to be able to integrate those parts to say I'm whole. And with that, the sum is greater than the parts, right? And that's how I would view it. I do think that as a society, we are doing a great job of left brain. So as far as focus on your question, I think the world would be much better off, or individuals would be much better off, if instead of reading 20 productivity books about how to do time management without wasting a single second of your day, we did a little more right brain management about how to be present, how to see connection, how to see purpose, to climb out of that jungle, climb a treetop and look around and say, I'm going that way.
Yeah.
And then you can go back down and let your left brain do its job. It's your emissary. It's your tool. But when it takes over and it runs your life, you'll be successfully miserable.
I'm fascinated by this subject. It's the first time I've ever heard about it. For someone who's listening to the podcast, what are some indicators that they are just on too much on their left brain? What are questions that they can ask, or things that are happening in their lives that they can think for a second and realize, wow, I need to start taking action?
Yeah, I love that question. That's interesting. So I'll kind of think out loud and reflect real time about what I've seen and also what it's been for me. I think I think there's nothing wrong with developing your left brain, and maybe there's a kind of a progression path that everyone has at different points in their life. Because picture the other way, right? If you have a really strong right brain and your left brain's not developed, then you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do and be incapable. Like, that's not desirable either, right? Like, just, oh, there's a dragon that needs to be slayed and I'm incapable of doing it would be horrible.
But I know why I should do it.
That's right.
I'm really passionate about killing it.
So I think that people, like, when you talk midlife crisis for a lot of people, right? And whatever age that happens at, really I think what people are talking about is there's this moment where they realize that for 10 years they've known that they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but they're looking for status, or there's things that are kind of more superficial that benefit them, or they're looking to get comfort, and sometimes good things like providing for my family, or there's good things, but they never spend enough time going underneath, and they're looking for, what's the longest way to get somewhere is take the shortcut. So I think an optimization for easy comfort, avoiding those questions, not reflecting. Ways that I see it when I work with someone is when they really struggle to understand their craftsmanship. So there's a book that's really interesting, very small, but took me a long time to read, called, I think it's Infinite Games versus Finite Games. And the concept is when you're playing a finite game, there's a discrete objective. There's a moment you're trying to accomplish something. When you're playing an infinite game, the work is the win. I love that quote. The work is the win. The reward for good work is more work. So when you're trying to work towards escaping something, you're left brain mode. The left brain is trying to accomplish an objective. When you are so happy that you get to deal with this problem in front of you because it's an opportunity and that's the game, you're in the right brain mode because you see the purpose in what you're doing. So when people are trying to get out of a situation, when they're saying, I'll be happy if, I'll be happy when, that's a sign. If you say those things, that's your sign that you are left brain dominant, and you're not letting, it's not even left brain dominant, I would say you're letting the left brain drive, right? The right brain should be setting the direction. The left brain gets you there. And so if you are running into those moments like, oh, I can't wait till I retire, or I can't wait till I hit, whatever income goal you have, or I can't wait until my kids are older so they're not crying all the time, then you're living in a world of destination happiness. I'll be happy if or when. And that would be my cue I'd look for.
The interesting thing about your analogy, you used a weightlifting analogy, and if you only did curls, so I did. Have you ever heard the Murphy before? Mm-hmm. So Murphy's 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and running 2 miles in under an hour. And I so badly wanted to do a Murphy with a pack. So I did all these Murphy, because you're supposed to do it with a 20 or 40 pound pack in addition to all that stuff.
Because that's not hard enough as is.
Right. Yeah. So to do it prescribed, you have to have the best. And so I was doing all these Murphys without the pack to get up, and I would do it a couple times a week. And I ended up like jacked up knee problems, and I went into the orthopedic specialist and said, what's happening to me? Like, I can't move. Like, I'm in the best shape of my life and I'm just a wreck. And so like, tell me your workout routine. Like, so let me look at your legs. Like, let's examine this. He said, well, what's happened is you've done 300 air squats 2 or 3 times a week for the last 4 months. What hamstring curls are you doing? What calf raises are you doing? And growing that muscle so strong had a more detrimental effect on my life than doing zero workout. And so as you're talking about the right brain, left brain, if all we did was just focus on one, you're exactly right that we would be efficiently going off of a cliff or be so purpose-driven with zero action. And it's the development and this integration of both of them. I told my cousin once, I think I was quoting Grant Cardone. I said, I'm so stoked to beat the world awake. And because I was waking up like 4 a.m. I'm so stoked to beat the world awake. And she said, I'm so stoked when I'm one with the world, when I wake up with the sun. And I was just like, oh, like mic drop after that. My yoga instructor, Pilates instructor cousin, just like dropping truth bombs. But I think what you're talking about is so spot on, that having this integration between the two and getting both as strong as possible and equally working out both and making sure each has its time and its season is going to produce the very best outcome individually and collectively.
Yeah, I love that example. That is a beautiful example. It reminds me of the map is not the territory. We're all none of us, like I like to say all the time, we like try to sometimes protect ourselves. Like, am I smart? Am I a good person? Am I figuring things out? No, we're dumb monkeys poking things with sticks. Like, we don't know what we're doing. Like, we're just wandering around trying to figure things out the best we can. And the way we've moved past that is through mental models, where we say, let me try this model, this recipe, this instruction thing, this map of how the world works. And if I do that, then I'm going to have this good thing. And that's great, except for when we forget that the map is not the territory. And so the workout programs, the diet, the carnivores versus the vegetarians, these are all just mental models that we turn into religions because we're looking for an answer to what's going on out there. We want to pretend there's no chaos. Instead of the hero's journey message of bringing order to chaos, we want to get rid of the chaos and just live in perfect order. But that's creating a hell. Hell is perfect order. Purpose comes from the process of bringing order to chaos. There's an example I really like of this, think of a young mom maybe at home cleaning up after the kids, and every day just feels like her house is a wreck. And she's stressed and she's tired and she's like, this is exhausting, right? And I can never get my house to look the way I want. But what does grandma see? Grandma sees the perfect order in the chaos. And the process, the looping process of resetting the game, the infinite game so the kids can play and learn and grow and engage with life, is the gift that mom's giving. And with that in her mind, all of a sudden that chaos doesn't feel so chaotic. Things have order and chaos at different dimensions.
Starts looking chaotic and like hell if you start placing self-judgment and fear of other people's opinions on your chaotic situation. But when you're able to be present without that judgment of the messy house or the judgment of I'm choosing to work because I love working instead of going mountain biking, not because I have something wrong with me, but like this is literally what I love most, then you can have that peace. I want to push on the Joseph Campbell.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Please.
Yeah, because I love that. I think there's two pieces. Because like when you're going through the forest or the jungle, you have to be present with where you're at or you don't go anywhere. There's also vision, right? So the hero's journey, what makes you leave your comfort? You have vision that something's out there. And so I think that bounce between
faith is the same as vision.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think I would say faith. That's kind of like
belief that something's out there.
That's a confidence in your vision, maybe.
Okay.
Because like if you don't get out of bed in the morning, that's a principle of action, right? If you don't believe there is a bed to get out of, or there's nothing to do, I think they're related. I guess I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, so you have vision.
But the Marduk, going back to our buddy Marduk, the Mesopotamian god, he had eyes around his head, so he had the vision to see out into the darkness. And I think that's the piece that all of us need to ask ourselves. Yes, being present in that moment and seeing the beauty of what is, but also having the vision of grandma and knowing that this is okay. This is where I'm meant to be right now. Oftentimes in our journey, we get frustrated that we're not at the mountaintop. But if we're at the mountaintop, then what are we climbing, right? And seeing that beauty in the process itself. So yeah, the presence married with the vision, I think, is what Joseph Campbell really is bringing us with that model.
You've been watching Hello Grow, the world's #1 growth podcast. I'm Cortland Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza. If you've watched this video so far, it means that you like the content that we're putting out and the people we're interviewing.
We're putting together a community of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales leaders. You liking, subscribing, and sharing this content helps us reach those that are going on that journey.
If you want to be a part of this community, please subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications.